Yes, the grind, a cornerstone of all games that desire to increase its longevity and replayability. This can range from doing a mundane task over and over again to gather experience or in-game loot to fighting a boss over and over again for loot. I think you get the picture. The grind can also be designed to give the player a sense of accomplishment, for instance, being able to progress the story further or increase in-game stats to reduce difficulty scaling. However, the player could also feel as if the grind process is boring or pointless in some cases. Why grind a battle pass for skins you will never use? Or why fight the same boss over and over again just to unlock a tower that could be substituted for another one that requires half the time to get it? In this video, I will be talking about how TDX tackles the grind, how they implement it into their game, showcase some methods I found to grind effectively throughout all stages of the game, the downsides to John's ethics when it comes to balancing the grind, and lastly, some heartwarming advice on how to solve those problems. I've listed timestamps below, so if there is a particular section you are keen on viewing, please use the selection I provided. Other than that, enjoy. TDX utilizes the concept of grinding just like any other tower defense game, mainly by keeping their player base active, staying relevant in a world where unique TD games seem to die out ever so quickly, and increasing player time, which keeps their revenue flowing. But you most likely knew that already, so let me go ahead and get into the brass tacks of how exactly TDX runs their grind operation. This is you, Remi Jr., and you decide to embark on your journey as a humble TDX player. You can bear witness this ever so revolutionizing concept of the grind occurring the second you beat the very first boss of the game. Receiving your handful of coins and experience, you head back to the lobby with a new goal, the Eradicator, a much tougher foe than the last, possessing the ability to now kill your towers. Seeing the gap between your new enemy and the firepower your team has, it would be foolish to run into battle unprepared. So you take a gander at the selection of towers you can buy to aid you on your quest. Of course, anything worth buying seemed a little bit out of budget. Then bam! Without even realizing it, the grind has drilled its way inside of your head. You must now go back and fight that same boss again to collect more coins to buy the necessary towers that will assist you in beating your next boss. Skipping ahead, we've accomplished this task, but there it is again, the next challenge that requires you to go back, beat the piss out of the Eradicator, collecting coins to unlock stronger towers. It finally dawns on you. The whole gameplay loop is centered around the grind. Repeating the same process of fight boss for stronger towers to fight another boss more powerful for even stronger towers is the most bare bones, boring, and simple tower defense core gameplay mechanic. So what makes TDX so special? Well, what better way to answer that question than to let its very community tell you? The most notable feature has to hands down be the medals mechanic, a completely original concept which rewards the players for completing all game modes, besides endless, on various different maps, giving them a 80% gold bonus per medal, which encourages players to try out the various different maps TDX has to offer, rather than just sticking to one. The community, and myself included, seem to love this idea, since it not only gives the newer players a head start with massive gold rewards, but it also incentivizes people to explore the game in its large array of maps. And my god, I cannot stress enough how beautiful these maps are. In contrast to other TD games, TDX specializes in scale, allowing the players to really get a feel for how large some of these maps are. I believe wholeheartedly that some of these maps will go unnoticed and unappreciated if medals didn't exist, which is why I absolutely adore this mechanic. But regardless of how gorgeous these maps are and how generous TDX is to reward players for visiting them, the grind isn't all sunshine and rainbows, most prominent being the time it takes to unlock each tower, which affects how long a person must grind for. Taking a long time to reach a goal isn't anything new. However, what TDX lacks is a proper matchmaking system, making the grind process even longer than what it should take. Opting for the classic elevator lobby layout that Roblox TD games are most familiar with, it makes it kinda difficult for players to find teams around their level that are willing to assist them. Some people could just be sitting around in the lobby, or simply go AFK and spawn. The most common answer to this problem people may bring up is the TDX Discord matchmaking channel. However, as Mike here puts it, it's extremely inconvenient since new players shouldn't be expected to rely on Discord to find new teammates, especially if the players are too underage to use it in the first place. This causes new players to either depend on others who've already spent a good chunk of time learning the ropes to guide them, or go in solo. How can they be expected to know what to do? Well, worry not, my friend. By the power of my connections to get the infamous Vicious group to totally sponsor this portion of the video. Please sponsor me. You know, the one that invented a grinding method so effective, they forced John's hand to remove the map carrier from existence.
Oh, brother, this guy.
Anyways, I can help you, my boy, to properly progress through all stages of the game solo. Borrowing strategies from their organization, I will teach you, the viewer, how to grind. Okay, before we begin, here are timestamps for the different stages of the game you might be looking for, in case you were already decently progressed and you just need help with coin/XP grinding for the more expensive towers. Or maybe you're just an endgame fiend that has a nasty computer and plays BTD 6 free-to-play mode. I got something for everyone. But for now, on the other side of the spectrum, let's start with Remi Jr. 2, who has a fresh account. Like I've stated before, medals grant you a 80% gold bonus increase upon beating that mode on that map for the first time. So naturally, for a new account like Remi Jr.'s number 2, we're gonna be wanting to grab as many as we can before mindlessly grinding one map over and over and over again. So, here's your beginner guide. Follow along now. Getting both Shotgunner and Cryo Blaster are going to be your main priority and your best friends, since they will be the key to the other 90% of easy medals. Only 90% because you are going to want to complete these 4 maps in particular to get those towers in the first place. I chose these maps specifically because there is virtually no way to lose with your current loadout, being only rangers, unless you purposely do so. Now, I've also properly done the math to account for the random daily rewards, plus the other achievements you'll earn for beating these 4 maps. Speaking of which, how do you actually beat these maps? Well, by simply placing 2 level 2 rangers and slowly upgrading them to level 4. Now, a rule of thumb to note with the rangers is that the top path is built for single target damage, while the bottom path is meant for crowd control. With that in mind, you'd want at least 2 to 4 bottom paths to deal with the cluster that is easy mode, and spam top paths for the rest of the game to absolutely destroy the Plague Doctor. Remember to spam the Ranger's ability so you can snag this achievement too. After roughly 1 hour of spamming Rangers, you've now unlocked the ability to do your very first Vicious X strategy.
Hi.
That was pretty cool, huh? Yeah, I spent way too much time on that. Anyway, this strategy can be applicable to damn near every map. Only thing that varies is the amount of time you'd have to invest, since some maps are a tad bit more complicated. But in spite of that, still a 100% win rate guaranteed. Enough theatrics. The plan is simple. Place 10 0-1 shotgunners along and as close as you can to the path. 0-1 meeting bottom path. Remember to quickly skip in between rounds to speed up the process, since it is safe to do so. No harm in not doing it, it just slows your gameplay a tiny bit. Afterwards, upgrade at least 8 of those shotgunners to 5-2, one at a time. There are chances you might leak, but that's okay. You have HP for a reason. This isn't improbable. Lastly, preemptively place 5 Cryo Blasters and set them to strongest. This is just in case you can't max your Cryo Blasters one at a time fast enough, and I only know this because I am totally not guilty of watching a YouTube video on my second monitor, which distracted me this one game, causing me to lose, which then led me to shamefully return to the lobby to sit AFK and cry. Make sure they can all reach the enemy spawn to freeze the Plague Doctor as soon as he comes out. Now, one at a time, you're gonna get each cryo to 2-5. And that's it. Sit back and relax and watch as your shotgunners slowly but surely put an end to the Doctor's short life. This strategy involves little to no skill and only really differs on hard plus maps, which we won't be touching anyways, since we're nowhere near level 30. Now, with the information you've learned, you're going to want to repeat this process 9 times over on any normal map. Technically, that's damn near all the maps, but this is a grind video, so get to it. Once you're finished, your new best friends are going to be the Missile Trooper and Barracks, my beloved. Because with them, we can do our second strategy.
Fuga. それを
Disclaimer, before we get deeper into the sauce, I will have to inform you that if you go any further, you'll be endorsing a leisure gaming experience, which is fine by all means. However, I highly recommend just playing the game and figuring out what works and what doesn't on your own, trial by error. That way, not only do I think you'll gain more in-game knowledge by simply getting a lay of the land yourself, but the coins and experience will slowly come to you. Trust me, good things come to people who wait. But hey, let's say you don't have time for that and you want to progress as fast as a Remi Jr. can. Well, you're talking to the right guy. Let's get back up program. Intermediate may seem a bit scary at first, introducing the players to the tower dying mechanic. I know, life without free healthcare sucks. But once you really take a look at the mode, there's only really 2 enemies that can actually deal damage to your towers. Physically, that is. Shockers will give your men unwanted flashbang PTSD. So as long as you're well prepared for those 2 waves, you should be just fine. Starting off, we're going to want to place 4 level 0 shotgunners as close to the enemy spawn as we can, then place a barracks. Depending on what map you're on, try to rationalize when you should skip. If you're on a shorter map, then obviously don't skip too fast. Let the scouts work their magic. We'll also most likely not be doing any of the harder maps anyway, since we're still below level 30. It's good to know anyway. Get the barrack to level 2-0, then 2-5. After you finish sitting around, skipping and waiting for money to flow into your pockets, you're going to want to place another barracks and do the exact opposite, slowly turning it into a 5-2. As the game goes on, attempt to repeat that process 5 more times. Your goal by the end of the game is to have 6 top path barracks in total, plus the bottom path one from the start of the game. Towards getting your 4th barracks, you should be nearing wave 29. If you are not confident in your abilities to deploy innocent men into battle, then preemptively place as many random shotgunners around the track as you possibly can. Try to imagine where the predator is going to be and place your towers accordingly. Don't place them here. Sure, he'll see them the second he spawns, but the literal second after, you'll be across the map, and that's money wasted. If done correctly, you'll be able to stall the predator long enough for your rail troopers to deal with him. I don't know why they made a mini boss spawn on wave 29, like wave 30 was right there. Anywho, you are now going to want to find an area where you can best capitalize Missile Trooper's incredible range, and one by one place a maxed out top path. Remember to set them to strongest so we can dish out as much damage onto the Eradicator as we can. He's stubbornly fast. And don't worry about any stragglers leaking, the barracks will catch them. Oh how I love you so. The world doesn't deserve you. Soon enough, the Eradicator should be dead. This strategy is a bit more complicated than the last, and it's going to get a whole lot more further down the line. For now, go around beating as many maps as you can with this strat, since it should work on all of them, if you've been paying attention to my teachings. Now notice how I didn't set up a goal for you this time. It is because this is where we meet the fork in the road. The goal of Cleave and Fuga is to go around collecting as many medals as we can to get more coins and level up. However, the strategies that lie ahead do not involve medal grinding anymore. The only options you'll have is to either make it boring or less boring. I reiterate, I highly recommend just playing the game for yourself and buying whatever towers that catches your interest. But alas, the choice is yours. From here on out, you'll be grinding one mode on one map over and over again. You can either do the bare minimum with Fuga to afford your next loadout that will start your elite grind, or you can save all your bones and immediately start your expert grind. The pros of doing the elite version though are that you can start it much quicker and make your grinding experience feel less repetitive, since you'll get to experience elite mode. However, if you're willing to take the more boring and mundane route, you'll be repeating Fuga until you're able to start the expert strat. If you want to start the latter, skip to this point in the video right here. If you wish to start your elite grind, then stay where you are. The strategies so far have been pretty simple, you know, not as punishing if you were to mess up or get distracted. Who said that?
Who?
Who said that?
Who?
What? What are you talking about?
Who?
What does that even mean?
Who?
I don't understand what you're trying to say. I don't know what to think no more, man.
Who?
I don't know what to think no more. Get out of here. Like I was going to say, Googas is a bit more difficult and can end badly if you're not too careful. I'd advise against turning on 50% speed if you aren't too confident in your reaction time. Let's begin. After 3 to 4 Fuga meshes, you should have more than enough for both Patrol Boat and Operator. Those two plus Shotgunner are the towers you'll need for Googas. Place 2 Shotgunners right here and get them both to 2-2. You could do it one at a time or both at the same time. It doesn't really matter, as long as they're both 2-2 at the end of the day. Once you're finished, get an Operator back here and get him to 4-2. It's advised to get the bottom path upgrades first, then top path, but I honestly think it's okay if you get it the other way around. Repeat the process 2 more times, leaving 3 in total. Going back, upgrade both those Shotgunners to level 5-2 one at a time. Switching over to the Operators, max the 3 you already have, then place 2 more with the same upgrades, which, you guessed it, one at a time. Now, this is where it could get a bit tricky and out of hand quickly if you don't follow my instructions fast enough. You'll want to fill up this entire lane with top path Shotgunners. Normally, I'd say preemptively place all 14, but I think it's much faster to get them maxed out one at a time. It might take more time placing one after the other. However, I do also think getting more maxed out Shotgunners is more important than trying to meet the quota in case stuff like this happens. I mean this. And that's the hardest part of the strat. All you have to do now is place a total of 12 Operators and as many top path patrol boats as you can. When the revived Plague Doctor arrives, place as many more Operators as you need to finish him off. Not so bad, right? Googas is the easily accessible elite strat that is quite simple to understand, and after merely 2 to 3 matches, you should have this thing memorized with no issues. The goal now should be to repeat the strategy over and over again till you reach level 30 to, of course, finally access the harder maps. Now, let's say you didn't want to do that. Screw trying to play the game for hours just to grind yet another strategy for hours.
I was actually wondering if I could get a room.
Let's say you wanted to, well, get your hands a bit dirty. Start your expert journey a bit early. Oh yes.
Was that a rhyme? Are you trying to rhyme?
A trick so cunningly evil that it breaks the very rules of TDX. Oh yes, that's right.
TDX? I was asking about my room.
You recall that time when you decided to sit AFK in the lobby for far longer than you should have.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Of course you do. Well, John has you in 4K. Oh yes.
You really like saying, oh yeah.
The GDA is always watching. Always.
That's kind of creepy. Who's GDA? What about my room? I thought this was a hotel. Wait, there won't be any cameras in my room, right?
Silence. It's too late to repent now.
I don't want to repent. I just want my room. I'm supposed to be featured.
Your time will come. You wanted speed and efficiency, didn't you? Oh yes, you did. Come here, follow me. Embrace this mischievous side of yourself.
Move it, boy.
Press up against this wall right here. Have your camera facing your right side. Now, in the chat, type /E dance 2. No caps. Listen very carefully. The second your animation pauses, use your scroll wheel to zoom in as fast as you can. Boom, you should be inside. Now, stand on this ledge and face the wall. Have the camera face your right side like before and repeat the process. Once you find the right moment in the dance to zoom in, it should look like you've been sent to an inverted version of that room. Repeat that process but face the opposite direction of this ledge. Then boom, you're in. Happy travels. Who was that guy? Now, whether you ended up here legitimately or not, it's none of my business. But you're here regardless, so listen up. Being in this area grants you the ability to play on harder maps. The reason why you'd want to do that is because it grants you a higher yield upon clearing maps. Of course, you could apply the skills you've learned with Cleave and Fuga, since those are universal strategies. However, if you've been following along, there's one strategy in particular that we should be striving for, and that's the challenge games. Similarly to what I said before, whether or not you ended up here by beating Fuga or Googas a billion times, the skill gap between these strategies are immense, and I'd like to take the same precautions as the ones using Googas. No 50% speed, be cautious of when you skip, and no more Family Guy on the side. We are jumping straight into the splash zone, so any small mistake could cost you the game. Let's proceed with extreme caution. The towers you'll need are as follows: Shotgunner, Farm, Patrol Boat, Barracks, Toxic Gunner, and Mine Layer. If you've done the strategies I've mentioned before, you should already have some of these towers. So realistically, you could start this strategy pretty early on. I digress. Place 2 1-0 shotgunners right here. As soon as wave 2 hits, set them to last. You will understand why later. Put down 3 2-0 farms one by one. After that, place a patrol boat at the bend of the bridge and turn it into a 3-2. Get the top path upgrades first, since it'll allow us to handle the bullet resistant enemies. Now, if you've been impatient and decided to skip every single wave, I highly recommend not skipping wave 8. I've died more times than I like to admit. Wait until the revived boss is killed to give the patrol boat the most time possible to kill the revived ranger. Once that's taken care of, place a barracks and get it to a level 4-0. Make sure to get these upgrades as fast as possible, since the faster you do, the quicker the troops will spawn. Going back to the farms, upgrade them all to level 2-3 one at a time, then forget about them. You won't be dealing with farms anymore. Switching over to the shotgunners from the start of the game, get one of them to level 5-2. This is to take care of the elite grenadier. Setting him last will allow us to kill it early before it causes too much mischief, since we're relying heavily on our barracks for hidden detection. Speaking of which, we're going to get said barracks to a 5-2. Afterwards, in the corner of the elbow, place another patrol boat and slowly get it to a 2-5. Set its targeting to random so we can inflict as much DOT on as many enemies as we can. Now listen carefully. You're going to one by one place a total of 9 Toxinators right here. Make sure the first 2 are by this rock to avoid Smasher's stun. It is important that you follow these instructions or you will lose. Or so I'm told. On wave 29, set them all to strongest. That way, we deal the most damage to the predators as possible, while making a buttload of money at the same time. Throughout wave 30, you're going to want to, as quickly as you can, place all your barracks down and get them to level 5-2. As the predators start coming out, place a bunch of level 0 patrol boats around the pond to bait their attacks. Once they start nearing the edge of the bridge, place shotgunners on land to continue to bait their attacks, stalling their movements. At this point, the barracks should clean up what's left of them. Replace any Toxinators that might have died, usually one will. Your next goal will be to place a total of 6 to 5 patrol boats one at a time, 2 inside the L and the other 4 outside. Remember to set them to random. Once they're all placed, you're pretty much set to skip as much as you want. Place a total of 10 5-2 mine layers along this lane one by one and as fast as possible. We'll want a bunch of mines on the field by the time wave 40 comes around. Afterwards, you'll want to fill in the remaining space with 5-2 patrol boats. Set them all to strongest so we can immediately start dealing damage to the Eradicator when it spawns. You'll be placing boats before and after it comes out, so don't worry if you didn't fill up the entire pond beforehand. When the Eradicator appears, you'll want to place 2 5 Toxinators here and spam the ability onto him, and especially do so when it nears the minefield. If done correctly, the patrol boats and barracks should be more than enough to take care of it on their own. Mine later being there as a safety net. This might not be the most effective expert grind out there, but it is easily accessible, which makes it, in my opinion, worth trying out. The yield is almost 2k gold for only 17 minutes of your time, without 50% speed. If you were to master this strategy, you'd theoretically be able to complete each run within 10 minutes, making the average hourly yield 10k gold and a whopping 72k experience. And mind you, this is all considering you still don't have any friends. I mean solo. You're still playing solo. You could repeat this process over and over again till you eventually unlock the desired towers. However, doesn't that start to make you wonder what's after expert? Pain. Pain, I tell you. Taking a page straight out of BTD6's free play, Endless is pretty much an amalgamation of every single entity in TDX. Enemies scaling in difficulty as the rounds get later and later. This is if Test Your Might from Mortal Kombat got infused with the tower defense mode. To be successful, you must be willing to put in the effort to micromanage several support towers while replacing dying ones. It's a mess. Let's talk about grinding potential. It's not as fruitful as you think. Comparing one of the best endless strategies to the challenge games, you can see that the gold intake is higher. However, the experience gained tanks in response. Of course, to make up for that, Endless is known for giving an absurd amount of power-ups, which only really bears fruit after the 100 to 150 round mark. This is also without mentioning the amount of labor it takes to get that far in the first place. Trust me when I say you'd preferably want a team of at least 3 people to help you assist in distributing the work. Although it is argued that soloing is an option, the effort to earnings ratio is too large to even consider that. To put it simply, the cons outweigh the pros. It's a fun mode, I grant you, just not something you'd want to go out of your way to grind. However, if you're still interested in arguably the best gold grinding strategy, I'll leave it in the description for you. And that about wraps it. A complete guide on how to progress throughout all stages of the game solo. I'm sorry I couldn't provide more information on the endgame content since the grinding potential isn't high enough to warrant coverage. That's why today's sponsor, Rogue Ordinary, can totally do that for you.
Rogue Ordinary can help you stay informed about everything to the
Hey, what's he doing here? He's not supposed to be our sponsor. What are you talking about? Sure he is. He's literally... No, he's not. Are you stupid? Who hired you? No. I have a contract right here that clearly says... What are you talking about? Rogue Ordinary doesn't have anything to do with the video. My job. I know how to do my job. Clearly you don't. Come here, son of... I'm so sorry you had to witness that. Oh, what's that? I'm the man behind the slaughter. I mean the mask. All right. You can stop, please. Thank you. You might be wondering, who's this handsome little devil? Well, that would be me, Remi. Remi's unofficial face reveal. This is for my 1K subscriber special. I know I'm a bit late. And you might also be wondering how I actually managed to illustrate myself in this adorable little form. Well, that would be thanks to Lunip, the actual sponsor for today's video. Here's a few words from them. What's that? Cat got your tongue? Please, thank you. I'm here all day. You might be wondering who orchestrated that whole wacky scene earlier in the video. It was them the whole time. Lunip is a freelance cartoony artist that specializes in commission work. Anything you can think of, they can bring to life. Whether that be banners, icons, emotes, a whole reference sheet, plus a whole bunch of other stuff I can't really legally mention. But what they're primarily known for is their character drawings. Roblox avatars, OCs, fan art, animals, furries, whatever it is, they can do it. Lunip is also very transparent and open to discussion when working on your designs. Don't be afraid to speak up. This isn't your local barbershop. If there is something you want to add, like extra details or maybe something you don't like, they are always eager to listen. Let's talk prices. Lunips are way too generous in my opinion for the quality that they deliver. I mean, look at this. I was long overdue for a makeover, and my god. Then for double the price, I mean, look, I'd have this printed on a canvas and nailed on my living room wall. Now that's just payment costs. The methods you can pay them are mad flexible. Cash App, PayPal, and even gift cards. Hell, my first couple of commissions were via Robux. I'm sure you guys can work something out. Finally, the terms of service are as follows. The prices may vary due to complexity. Lunip can deny services to any peculiar requests, will not draw anyone else's OCs without their explicit permission, and lastly, will not start on commissions without payment first. No money, no honey. You can find them on Instagram and Discord. Their contact info and link to their Discord server will be listed in the description below. But other than that, back to the show. The history of John smiting his grinding community can be dated all the way back to the barracks release. I mean, the second people realized that the troops can see through obstacles, Calzonification's terrifying concept of making your towers visually impaired ceased to exist and became a piss-easy map that everyone was lining up to play, since all you needed was barracks and a couple of chaps that also had said tower. I mean, the yield on this strategy was massive as well. 2k to 4k gold an hour? I mean, that's nothing now, but back then, the most expensive towers were Normal Juggernaut and the Railgunner. That's less than 5 hours of piss-easy Calzonification gameplay. This, no doubt, broke the game's economy. So what was John's response to this whole ordeal? Remove. To prevent too many people from progressing early game faster than John intended, he straight up removed Calzonification. In hindsight, it was a good band-aid fix. But this show of power and control over the game gave people a taste of what John is truly capable of. The following weeks after the release of Nightmare Xmas mode, John brought back Calzonification with one simple change, altering its difficulty from hard to normal. That's it. Of all the things they could have done to this map, they simply switched its difficulty. The grinding community was stunned by this change. One of the most unique maps that really benchmarked the site blockage mechanic fallen from grace due to a single tower. To others, a quick and easy solution. To me, wasted potential. The simple and easy solution was the temporary band-aid fix, which was to vault the map, not altering its difficulty to an unrealistic standard due to one tower. What happens when someone doesn't use the barracks, making their experience harder? Should they still receive the normal map rewards? For some people, this marked the beginning of John's poor balancing changes arc. Blitzkrieg Infinity broke the limits of what TDX had to offer, absolutely sucking the most bang for your buck in a single match, making the hourly yield an astronomical 25 to 26k gold. I mean, what? We're talking about being able to unlock Warship and Golden Juggernaut within 7 hours. This was undoubtedly and undeniably the best gold grinding strategy to date, and it's not even close. I won't get into nitty-gritty details here, but I was told that the usage of Warship and insane placements for towers made Carrier, ironically, the easiest hard map to grind endless on. So what was John going to do to balance the grind? He's never had to face an issue this large before. Carrier had its own set of quirks with its awkward placements for early game towers, which meant that the ranking of hard difficulty made sense. The main issue seemed to stem from the Vicious X strategy, which abused the map's design to capitalize endless grinding. This meant if John were to rebalance the map, he'd have to dig deep. It was too small to warrant turning it into a normal map, so the cow annoyance treatment was off the table. Maybe making it so that the endless mode on that map is unplayable, or he removed the map. Yep. Just like before, he quickly removed Carrier from the map pool to prevent too many people from taking advantage of this revolutionizing strategy. From the situation before, we now know that vaulting maps is John's usual MO to give him and his devs more than enough time to come up with the solution, which is completely fine. As time went on, people speculated what exactly John would do to change the map in the name of rebalancing, and when it would exactly return. But that was it. As weeks turned into months, it was clear that John had no intention of making any map-specific changes to combat the excessive gold grinding. The actions of the few highly skilled players made changes to the game that affected all players. People who've never got to experience Carrier can no longer do so. It is now clear that John's map balancing methods are lazy and lacks motivation. Which brings me to the final notable map change due to excessive grinding: Limbo. Limbo's design is actually pretty unique, utilizing the complex nature of the cliff mechanic. They've essentially turned the simple zombie pathing to be somewhat challenging on paper. Towers placed on the lowest level can only attack for so long before the zombies climb over them. This makes way for interesting strategies to take place, such as prioritizing placing towers on this level, allowing them to attack enemies from above, just like a staircase. With the map design being this unique, its hard difficulty classification kinda made sense. Unfortunately, that didn't last very long. Its distinctive nature wasn't enough to actually warrant it being a hard map. Compared to the other hard maps, it was much longer than the mall, and in this particular case, it wasn't just its length, it was the way its length was being utilized. As you can see, there are a lot of bends which allow towers to fire at their targets for much longer. A map like Dead End Valley, for comparison, is just a straight line. This makes the time that enemies are within towers range much shorter than they would be on a map with a lot of bends. But even with a ton of bends like Volcanic Mishap, if they're short enough, enemies will still manage to squeeze by if you don't kill them fast enough. With that out of the way, when people like Ash Frozen got their hands around the map, John duly took notice as scheduled and decided to bump down its difficulty from hard to normal. People were obviously upset since another one of their get-rich-quick schemes was taken away from them. However, I do think that this change made sense and was actually pretty good. It was a small step in the right direction for his balancing methods. In conclusion, John may not have the best solutions when it comes to combating super effective grinding strategies via mostly map balancing, but it's not like he completely doesn't know what he's doing either. While straight up removing maps to shut down gold mine operations isn't the greatest fix, it unfortunately still counts. Something that I will scrutinize John for though is his inability and unwillingness to try something new to fix the cow annoyance problem. It is the hardest normal map, and the only reason why it would be a normal map is if you were to bring along barracks or any other tower that ignores the line of sight mechanic. Allow me to provide a solution. A solution that might be difficult to implement, but would show that TDX is willing to put in the effort to change. It would be to reduce the reward multiplier per spawner tower used. Now this might sound convoluted at first, since it seems like too much work to the point where it wouldn't really be worth it. However, implementing this mechanic would not only fix difficulty scaling with more complex maps that involve a lot of obstacles, but it would also incentivize more maps like it to be made. This would not only make room for more interesting maps to be created like in BTD6, it would also provide a challenge for the top 1% of the community who've gotten the Admiral badge and decided to keep climbing. Another issue that may be brought up with my suggestion is that players might have a hard time figuring out which maps are affected by its reduced modifier. Well, something as simple as a tiny icon on the map appearing or a notification popping up as you enter an elevator explaining the modifier. Either or are a tiny solution that could work, but if that isn't enough, then maybe an additional icon in-game would suffice. Similarly, in TDS and how they have their modifiers shown and explained in the corner of players' screens. Elaborate as it may be, I believe the outcome would be more than worth it. Ever since the launch of TDX, John has made it apparent that the line of sight mechanic would be essential to its gameplay and experience. And so far, I feel as if he's forgotten all about it. Such a unique mechanic boiled down to being a minor inconvenience. Seeing more maps like Sword Fights on the Heights, Military Harbor, and especially Cow Annoyance are such a breath of fresh air. So please, if anything John, take my idea or something similar in consideration. Something like scaling rewards based on maps rather than difficulty. The devs have done a mostly bang up job with rating each map in their respective sections, but despite their best efforts, there are some outliers like Secret Forest or even Purgatory. So, for an example with the change I'm offering, Secret Forest would be considered a hard map, but will have slightly higher rewards than normal maps, since its openness gives towers tons of great placement spots that hold great value. For instance, the Water Mix Patrol Boat, very useful, virtually granting it map-wide range on both paths. Another example would be Purgatory, since it's a polar opposite of Secret Forest. There are more obstacles that can block line of sight, and its short length makes outrunning defense very common. So I'd rate it a normal map, but give slightly more rewards. I believe that such a small change can greatly impact how future maps reward players while simultaneously preventing more Blitzkrieg Infinites from being created, basically separating the pro from casual players. As TDX matures and slowly turns into an angsty teen, they'll start to yearn for the battle pass. Every healthy growing tower defense game has either dipped their toes with the mechanic or at least dreamt of doing so. TDX is no different, implementing it along with the Tower Battles collaboration event. The game mode itself was outstanding and the rewards from the battle pass complemented it perfectly. The problem though, of course, lies with the grind. I already forget what this video is about. The methodology behind earning tokens, the currency used to purchase tiers in the battle pass, was mainly via event maps, which on paper wasn't a bad idea. There were plenty of different maps that scaled in difficulty and its rewards with it. However, if you actually took a look at the amount you'd get per match and then the amount it takes per tier, yeah, slowly starting off, each tier is maybe one match of the nightmare difficulty, then two towards the good skins. The prices for each tier then increases exponentially. I'm talking about 6 to 7 nightmare matches and rising. Now, you might be wondering how much time this would actually take and if players were able to make it in time. Well, not to worry. John, being as generous as he is, gave the players upwards of 70 days to do the deed. Though, despite his hospitality, the players, especially myself, felt as if it took 70 days to complete it instead. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. Technically, playing any mode on any map grants you some tokens, but with the amount being so insignificant, it was nowhere near viable to grind. This basically forced players to prioritize only playing the event to progress their battle pass. Giving John the benefit of the doubt, this wasn't a bad idea on paper, since it promotes the collab even more. However, the ideology would come back to bite him, since repeating the same thing over and over again gets boring. What a reputation to leave behind, am I right? And we're not just talking about some simple, easy, or intermediate grind. I'm saying, with the most effective method to grind tokens being Nightmare Mode, it would take upwards of 40 plus games to reach the most valuable tier, the Z Tower. The final one being a complete joke. But hold on, let's say you don't have any of the towers or even teammates in the first place to help you beat a single match of Nightmare. This leaves you with easy mode being your only choice. That is double the amount of games you need to beat. 80 plus games? Are you mad? Do you see the issue here? One of TDX's first ever events giving you a skill check, and the variety of maps weren't even worth playing since Western and military base were the most effective to grind, since there was no incentive to play the other ones. Again, I'd like to reiterate, the Tower Battles event itself was incredible. It showed that John was more than capable of making an event that makes you think about strategy, instead of using any other loadout for something like Expert or Endless. Despite that, that is really all you're left with when you take away the Battle Pass. 2 new modes that test your abilities. I'd argue that more than half the event is locked behind the Battle Pass. Skins, power-ups, the new towers are all contained within the Battle Pass. This meant that you had to play the new modes to reach the new content. What does that say to the newer players? What kind of precedent are we trying to set with such an update? This is without talking about how the rewards were structured. Getting the commander and then their skins after made sense. Then we stumbled upon the GDA skin. I mean, say I were to stop right there, I'd have a skin of a tower I don't even have. But wait, it's not like John didn't completely know what was going on within his community. So you know what he does? He drops a 2 times token event, and I want you to guess for how long. Double token weekend for the rest of the 70 days maybe? A week? It was 24 hours. And on top of that, he stated that this would be his last time doing this. Say you weren't available or too busy to play a silly Roblox game. Your short window to cut your 80 plus games in half is now gone. But not to worry, you recall his statement of this being the only time he'd do something like this. He did it again. In the span of a week, he turns on 2 times tokens and says that this would be his actual last time implementing such a thing. He did it again. 48 hours this time though, so technically speak, whatever. I won't pretend like this wasn't helpful towards the community, but John sprinkling the 2 times event so sporadically and randomly, there was no way to predict when to take advantage of it. People who have other things planned or are busy with literally anything else will miss out on such a big opportunity. Of course, all of his information was kept within the TDX Discord server, so casual players who weren't as involved must have been super confused. So not only was the battle pass long and grueling, John was also aware of this and decided to drip feed us small little nitro boosts throughout the 70 plus days. The grinding aspect of this event was unorganized and honestly made sitting around collecting razors seem more fun. So how can we exactly improve this to make future battle passes less scummy? Well, for starters, by increasing the token gain per regular match. This would grant us more variety when it comes to collecting tokens rather than sticking to the 2 event modes. Of course, I'd keep the yield for those modes higher since they are the star of the show. I would just like to have an alternative for players who don't want to play the event anymore. This would help justify the super long deadline. Then I'd implement a shop-like system rather than the standard linear battle pass. This would allow players to choose what their rewards would be instead of grinding for something they wouldn't use anyway. That way, people who want the towers can get them without the worry of being burnt out. Then, with the extra 60 days left, can collect the skins and whatnot in their free time. Maybe as they're playing a match of Expert or Endless with a couple of their buddies. The tokens will slowly line their pockets and boom, the grind no longer becomes a problem. Not such a bad idea, huh? In conclusion, the TDX grind is anything but easy. But John has implemented several ways that makes it less grindy, such as adding the medals mechanic. And as a matter of fact, at the time of this recording, I heard rumors of John maybe adding a mission system that'll assist in gathering coins, since that seems like a big issue now. Additionally, there's also the matter of matchmaking and how it could benefit newer players who aren't as heavily involved with the Discord server. This causes them to rely on themselves for support, which my video does help solve, but that's only a temporary fix and should be looked into as quickly as possible. New players are the foundation of a healthy up-and-coming tower defense game. Next up is the ethics when it comes to John's balancing to combat the grind. It was hasty and lazy at first, simply removing maps and switching around difficulty, yet there are signs that he's improving, such as the more than reasonable change with Limbo. As long as he's developing a way to prevent more blitzkrieg infinite situations, such as implementing map reward scaling rather than difficulty ones, or better yet, a modifier that incentivizes the line of sight mechanic by preventing players from using towers like barracks to make those maps easier. It would be nice to see more challenging maps like cow annoyance being taken more seriously. Lastly is the poor use of the battle pass. Forcing players to repeatedly play the same mode for skins they might not even use is no way to encourage engagement. Something as simple as a non-linear battle pass that allows players to choose what rewards they get is so much more incentivizing. All in all, the grind can be much worse. Blessings for the free 50% speed up in solo matches. But John needs to get his shit together, or it will get much worse as he adds more expensive towers. I'm looking at you, Pursuit. I'm also looking forward to the missions mechanic, John. Oh, and join my Discord server in the description below for leaks on upcoming projects. Thanks for watching to the end. It really means a lot. Till next time, Saltar.